All right, Dan Levy, talk about going into season 2 of Schitt's Creek, which, by the way, I love the title of this show. I
Thank you
love
very
saying that.
much.
You're welcome. I love saying that on camera.
It's been fun. It's been fun for people to sort of, find creative ways of incorporating it, especially on network television.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
So you guys had a pretty successful season 1. Coming into season 2, what were the expectations like? Was there any pressure in it, or?
I think the only pressures are sort of self-imposed pressure. I mean, we have a very loyal fan base to the show who I feel like, because the show is so small, feel like they've found it.
Mhm.
And in a way, there's a sense of ownership when it comes to our viewers. They feel like they've discovered something. So ultimately, in terms of creating what season 2 would look like, you want to live up to the expectations that fans have formed for season 1 and sort of take it one step further. And that was the goal. And I think ultimately you sort of have to lose those expectations the minute you walk into the writer's room, because that'll sort of kill you. So ultimately we just went with our instincts and trusted them. And I think season 2 was just went a little deeper. I think it's a better season. As you hope with a second season. And we're having a lot of fun. I think ultimately second seasons of television shows, you really get the sense as to whether the show has legs or not. I think that's sort of a make or break season for a lot of TV, where you realize, do we have story to tell, or did we sort of run through it in the first season? So for us, it was a relief to know that there's a lot more story to tell here.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you guys are really getting into a groove now, that you, as with any TV show, of course, like this.
Yes.
You guys are getting better. But I want to go back to the beginning. Where did the idea for this show come from?
I had been throwing around the concept of sort of a fish out of water story, playing on the level of wealth that I think we're exposed to now culturally, what that would look like if, a family like the Kardashians, who are so associated with excess and wealth, what would that look like if they lost their money, but you still had that fly on the wall, approach to their lives. And it grew from there. And then in researching how people lost their millions, we stumbled across this article on Kim Basinger, who had bought a town way back when, and it didn't work out as she had hoped. And we thought, well, what if this family had bought a town, and what if the town was named Schitt's Creek, and what if that was the whole joke? That's why they bought it, and then in the end, it came to kick them in the ass, and everything sort of fell into place once we discovered this little plot point for the show, and I think that really opened up an emotional world for the show as well, because the key to it is really, these people are sort of on paper not very likable, but because the circumstance happened to them and it wasn't their fault, I think inherently you were able to create some kind of sympathetic emotional thread to the show, where they are victims of circumstance, and I think that's how we've managed to get the audience to side with them.
Yeah, I mean, the culture clash is so funny. I mean, there's an endless
Yes, it
amount
is.
there's an endless amount of material that seems to come from that.
Yeah, big disconnect.
So, talk about the cast. There's a guy in there named Eugene Levy.
Yes. He was hard to get. But we're glad we got him. And Catherine O'Hara, Chris Elliott, Emily Hampshire, who's doing amazing work on our show and 12 Monkeys. She's going to be in the new Xavier Dolan movie shooting this summer. Annie Murphy, who plays my sister on the show. I mean, we really lucked out with our cast. We got some really amazing, comedy icons to sign on. And then I think we found some really fresh young talent that have really sort of run with their roles and really made something of them in a way that, as a writer, you only hope, would be the case.
Well, yeah, talk about you know, balancing your responsibilities as a writer, because you do write a number of the episodes,
Mhm.
with your responsibilities as an actor, and you're also an executive producer on the show. So what's it like wearing all those different hats?
It's intense, but it's really great. I think because my dad and I had created the show from its sort of inception, we have a very strong idea of what the show is, and because of that, it's been very easy. In terms of the show running responsibilities, to know exactly where the show fits aesthetically and tonally and comedically. And also having written it, being on set, we're on set for everything. So we're really able to help shape the moments and make sure that all the beats are hit. And it's a blast. We have a really great team. And everyone sort of gets along. It's a family, and ultimately it's a collaborative effort on everyone's part. I mean, when you have, my dad and Catherine O'Hara working together on screen, you sort of just, at the end of the day, let them run free. And I think what Catherine has done with this character is so insane and amazing. It's like nothing I've ever seen before on TV. So, for us, it's just you bask in that and try to write something that lives up to her standards.
Yeah, those two have such a great history, as we all know, with all those wonderful Christopher Guest movies.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a bit more about the way you guys work as an ensemble. Some of the best scenes in this show are just where you guys are all together in the same room and sort of riffing off of one another. I mean, what?
Yeah, it's a family that thrives on conflict, ultimately.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead. I just want to, talk about just being on the set and a typical shooting of a scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people look at the show and think that there's it's primarily improvised, which it's not. The script really is, for the most part, what ends up going on air. But there is a level of improvisation just in terms of the way that a scene plays out. It's a very loose approach that we have to shooting these scenes. Nothing set in stone, and ultimately it's instinct. And I think allowing, trusting our cast, and then B, allowing them to really sort of go with what they feel the character would do or say, has led to a casual nature in terms of the way that the scenes play out. Because if a line's not working, we will take the best line. And if that's coming from an actor or coming from, a writer that's on set, ultimately you just want to make the funniest scene possible. So once it's on its feet, we really sort of play with it for a little bit. And then ultimately, we just end up shooting what comes from that.
Mm-hmm. So talk a bit about your character. Who is he?
I don't think he knows. We're learning. We're learning season after season. David Rose is the son of Johnny and Moira Rose, and has spent the majority of his life sort of been, he's been spoon-fed. Every opportunity that's come his way has been paid for, and yet he firmly believes that he's had a strong hand in his life. He's a gallery owner. He went to a liberal arts college and sort of has managed to place his identity in the hands of this world he's created for himself or bought for himself. And when he comes to Schitt's Creek, all of that falls away, and you're dealing with a character that really has no idea who he is, because everything he built his life around was a complete construct, and wasn't solid in any way. And that's been really fun to play with. It's been really fun to explore season after season, because I think with all of these characters, money has really solved a lot of their problems. So to see that stripped away, especially in the second season, we take an even sort of deeper look at who these people are. And I think a family that has been so disconnected for so long, realizing that they need each other. And there's actually some lovely emotional moments that play out through our second season, which is, I think, takes the audience by surprise.
I just loved the premiere episode of this second season where you've gone missing and you turn up at an Amish farm.
Yeah. Yeah. He tried to make a dramatic exit at the end of season 1, and it just didn't work out as planned. And ultimately, you know, ends up in the hands of an Amish family who very much want him to go far away. He's overstayed his welcome, to say the least. But I think ultimately that's what these people are to the town. You know,
Yeah.
a nuisance. And I think that for us that was really important, because we've seen the whole, you know, poke fun of the small town played out, you know, in several shows. So for us it was really important that this family be the butt of the joke, and that the town itself actually be like a wonderful place to live. It's incredibly liberal, Schitt's Creek, which is amazing.
I think one of my favorite characters in the show is Stevie, and I love the relationship between the two of you and how that develops throughout the series. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think for me that was this dynamic is the most exciting for me to write, just because I've never seen it explored on television before. That the dynamic of, you know, two people who know that they mean a lot to each other, but at the same time don't know what that means. You know, David is a pansexual. Stevie, I think for the longest time was in love with him, and I think he is in love with her, but he doesn't know what that means. And, you know, testing those waters with each other, both physically, intimately, emotionally, on a friendship level, on a romantic level, is really fun to play, because I think it's something that happens now. And in terms of the feedback we've been getting from the show, there's a lot of people who are connecting to that storyline, just the, you know, the blurriness of what a friendship relationship can be nowadays. And Emily and I have so much fun shooting it. And we're sort of shooting our 3rd season right now, and that dynamic is even even more heightened in the beginning of the 3rd season. So it's been really, really fun to explore.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you contrast those scenes with a lot of the ones with you and your sister, where you're both so childish. I mean, it's very
well. That's
funny
the great
stuff.
thing. It's just, you know, putting 2 adult children in a room together, you know, and they've spent the majority of their lives sort of vacationing and doing things away from each other. So putting them back together, you're really sort of picking up where they left off in teenagehood. And writing these 2 as, you know, is completely immature, you know, little brats has been great. And it's really fun to play. It's fun to play sort of a, you know, a really stunted brat trying to navigate the waters of living with your sister in the same room.
So I want to talk a bit more about Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara. Now, obviously, you spent a lot of time with Eugene Levy.
I have. Yes.
So, I mean, was it predetermined for you to go into comedy growing up in that environment?
No, I don't. You know, I think for the longest time, I was a host on MTV for a long time, and I spent the majority of my time on television avoiding the association, just because I feel like, particularly in this industry, nepotism is an area that a lot of people love to sort of throw out there quite prematurely. So for me, it was really important to prove to myself that I had something to offer on camera and behind the camera before I, you know, involved him in anything that I did creatively. And we ended up working together while I was at MTV towards the end of my run there. And then, you know, when I was throwing this idea around after I had left, I thought, okay, you know what, I think now is the time to see if he'd be interested. Mainly because I felt like this premise, you know, a wealthy family losing their money, had never been explored through his comedic lens before, which is a style of comedy that is rooted in something very real and very emotional. I'd seen it played out in a more sitcom sense, but thought that it could really benefit from his touch. So we started to, you know, in the early days, just explore what the idea was. And I don't think any of us had any idea that, you know, we'd be 3 seasons in, and you know, I'd be talking to you right now. It's all very surreal.
Yeah. Well, what did having the two of them on this set add to the show? You know, I mean, having these two great old pros of comedy.
I think from a viewer's perspective, there is something magnetic about their dynamic. I don't think you can even articulate what it is. I think they just have something that works. So right off the bat, I think we had a dynamic that audiences would buy into almost instantly. And then I think too, for these two amazing sort of comedy forces to root the show and to be the foundation of this family, I think it really set a lovely tone for the rest of us, and really informed the rest of the show in terms of the style of comedy that we would be working with. And ultimately, all of us just show up to set and sort of sit back and are in awe of what they do, most days. So we're just trying to keep up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, of course, add to that, Chris Elliott as this.
There was no question in our mind when we came up with this character that Chris Elliott had to play it. There was nobody else. So fortunately, he said yes. But he's great, and he's the only person that I have seen make my dad laugh as hard as he does on set.
Really? Yeah.
Yes, my dad is he's a consummate professional until he works with Chris, and then there's no holds barred. It's just laughing through every take, and I think at this point Chris goes out of his way to try and make my dad break. And for the most part succeeds whenever he wants. So it's, for all of us, it's really fun. It's fun to watch because my dad tries very, very hard to keep it together.
Well, he's so wonderful in the way that he comes in and disrupts the the foundation of this family. Again, with the first episode of the second season, at the end where you guys are eating breakfast and he comes to get an apology from you, and he just won't leave.
He's the most stubborn person on the show. Just, will not stop until he gets what he wants. And I think, in contrast to this family, represents just the polar opposite of everything they stand for. And it's really fun to have that contrast with him. It's been it's really fun.
So you guys are shooting season 3. What can we expect from it? You don't have to spoil anything for us.
Yeah, well, season 2, I think we're 2 episodes out from the finale.
Right.
And the finale of season 2 is my favorite episode that we've ever done so far. And it really sort of ends on an emotional note. And I think it really shows that this family is learning what love means. I don't think they've ever really understood what that is. And so we end season 2 on a lovely note in that sense, and then come back obviously in the polar opposite direction for season 3 and work our way back again. But it's just taking things a little bit deeper. It's, the family is getting even more ingrained in the town. People are getting jobs for the first time. And, relationships are strengthening. Romantic relationships are strengthening and blossoming. And I think we're realizing that this family will not be getting out of Schitt's Creek anytime soon.
Well, I hope not.
They're stuck there for a bit. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Congratulations on the show. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.